we rewatched the documentary last night. Just incredible stuff. I know I was kind of glowing with praise to Paige before on the phone, and Dally, really, it was just an amazing work to show the struggles of Jake. To literally you driving down the road, finding him, he's like, hey, I'm over here, and Steve, you pictured it so well as far as, Jake Roberts, the guy should have all the money in the world, and what you walk into and what you see, and a broken man, and now it's Jake's resurrection. It's Jake now. This is a totally different story is being told from somebody who cares. And I think that is like the biggest thing. It's raw emotion. It's tears. It's anger. It's trying to, get those demons aside, which ultimately they never leave. There's something you have to fight every day, and that's something you learn in the 90-plus minutes, which the footage is incredible. The whole bit's incredible. I mean, I'll just throw it over to you guys to kind of give us a little bit of background. And Dallas, how you are just this catalyst, this somebody with a huge heart that will never let go of the people that took care of you and you cared for through your wrestling career.
Well, I want to throw it to Steve U because, coming from his point of view and where he saw it, Steve, what would you...
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the whole idea initially was Dallas came to me and he said he had talked to Jake, and I didn't even know him and Jake were friends. And then when he told me about how bad off Jake was, as someone who's really interested in doing documentary films, I thought it would be amazing if we could, try to help Jake and at the same time, create a documentary about it. And the whole idea was if we could get Jake to believe that he could do something bigger than he was doing at the time, that maybe we could create a documentary that could inspire other people to do big things. So that was kind of the idea going in. And I guess
and just a little background on him. He had went Cornell, Ivy Leaguer, went through IBM, had a super job, and left it because he wanted to go and make films to inspire people. So I couldn't think of a better guy, when it came time to do this.
Well, actually, Steve owns the phrase "never give up." You have that trademark, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy running around the wrestling scene now, John Cena. Somebody, a new kid. He's got a good future.
Yeah, I let him use it. But, yeah.
And Steve gets a little bit of credit, too, because there's times during the movie where, Jake is in your face saying, turn this camera off, and you turn it off for about 5 seconds, and then you find another angle
Yeah,
to get that camera on.
They point it down.
Right,
yeah.
Like that one scene, he keeps saying turn it off, and then it goes off, but then it comes back on a little bit later. Yeah, so that's always kind of funny.
Yeah, and Steve, you come off almost as like the level-headed guy because
imagine that.
Yeah, I know.
Three wrestlers and an Ivy Leaguer under one roof.
Well, true, and also, I mean, the emotion too. You knowing Jake for so long, the care that you guys had for Jake, and you certainly getting to know him, but you could almost look at it as an outside observer. And obviously, you have a job to do. You have to direct. You have to, get this great footage and put it all together in documentary form.
Yeah, I thought I was supposed to be the heel in the movie, but yeah, no, it was tough. I mean, I probably am. But no, it was difficult because, these guys didn't know me. They didn't trust me like they did Dallas. So to get them to allow us to film everything and for them to be emotional in front of the camera was like, it was amazing when we were shooting it. Like we couldn't believe that we were getting what we got.
And, I was criticized big time in the beginning for putting those YouTubes out there in the beginning. People didn't understand what we were doing, but I knew where we were going. And I knew that if you don't know, a hero is defined by the size of his opponent. If you don't know what kind of adversity is in front of this person, why do you give a fuck? When you see wow, this is one of my heroes, like real heroes. And now, whoa, where is he at? And then you start to see him fight back and gain some. And then gain some. And then gain some, so much so that when Scotty was in the hospital, tell him what happened with that, bro.
I was so sick that I was hospitalized in Orlando. I mean, it was all alcohol related. I'm hospitalized in Orlando to the point where there's no visitors, no phone calls. I only interact with the medical staff and this kid who serves the food trays. Lo and behold, he's a big-time wrestling fan. I grew up a wrestling fan. But I'm laying there with an IV in both arms and an oxygen gimmick up my nose. I don't feel good. And this kid wants to talk wrestling, and he's so excited, but he knows he's got to get out of there. He's not supposed to hang out. So, and I'm nodding my head like, yeah, thanks, yeah, bro, yeah. And he goes, oh, I got to show you this. He pulls out his phone and he shows me a before and after picture of Jake. And Jake's been with Dally like 6 months at that point. I've never partied with Jake in the past, and we don't plan on starting now.
Yeah.
But I knew that Jake had been in dark places, and I certainly had been in some dark places. And it just gave me a glimmer like, wow, Jake can do it. Man, what's Dally doing up there? And I had a long time, close relationship with Dally. And it was like, well, go to rehab again. What will this be, number 13? Or try something different. So I went up there, stayed with Dally for several months. Now I live 2 blocks away. I'm not going to stray too far from the support system. I'm in walking distance of the newly opened DDP Yoga Performance Center. So I've got a really strong support system around me, and I feel like I'm right where I should be.
Scott, do you remember the phone call? I mean, obviously you can watch it on the documentary, but do you remember it happening? Dallas calling you?
What do you think, bro?
Probably not.
No, not at all. No.
What do you think, in retrospect, got you to say yes? I'm going to come. Because at the time, like you're saying, you're not remembering the call. I'm sure things are very difficult. We saw the shape you were in when you came through the airport. And honestly, as a Razor Ramon, as a Scott Hall, as an NWO fan, as an Attitude Era kid, I couldn't believe that this was Scott Hall. And I'm sure a lot of people, when they see the resurrection of Jake the Snake, are going to say the same thing.
Yeah, it was hard for me, but there's one point, and it's hard for me to sit through the movie, so I kind of hang out in the lobby, and I come in towards the end for the Q&A. But last night I stumbled in, and it was the part when the phone call was going on, and there's a phrase that's used really commonly in all treatment. It's spiritual awakening. Mm-hmm. And as they're reaching out to me, I remember stumbling. Could barely talk, and I said, I feel like I'm having a spiritual awakening. Yeah. And I watched it last night, and it seemed like my speech started to clear a little bit even then. And to me, I'm not trying to insult people who aren't Christians. I am, and God is my higher power. I really think it's like a God thing, like just the way things fell in place. And they're inviting me to come stay, and I'm going, say it one more time, and I'm going to do it. And he goes, there's a ticket waiting at the airport. Come on. Wow. And I went and never went back.
And you talk about it, Doug, the way you look. Like looking at you right now, you look amazing. I mean, you look like you did.
Thanks. I'm at the Sheraton. Swing by later.
You don't want Dave coming there.
You're obviously not talking to me, which is fine. But seeing that movie and having that movie fresh in my mind and watching you, how you arrived to Dallas and arrived by being with Jake and seeing you now, I mean, it's a miracle to see where you were just a short time ago and how you look right now.
Yeah, thank you. I feel so blessed. And again, every opportunity I get, I like to publicly thank Dally for reintroducing me to myself. I can't look at him. I'll start crying. Reintroducing me to myself and restoring hope. Because at that point, I was hopeless. I figured the pain I had, I earned it. Hey, I've had a good run. This is the way you guys end up. I'm done. I wasn't going to kill myself because I don't want to go to hell. But I didn't care if I died. And that's not a good place to be.
And you with your son and Jake with his many kids, you did ironically have so much to live for. And is that part of the awakening, realizing that, time is finite and you never get it back?
Yeah. And again, like I always loved pro wrestling. I was always a fan, but I always made a distinction. It's what I do. It's not who I am. My mother didn't name me Razor. And I have 2 kids. My daughter got all the brains in the family. She's on an academic scholarship at the University of Central Florida. Her name's Cassidy. My son Cody is chasing his dream. He's in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's part of the Bullet Club. Wow. He's in their top storyline. He's a big son of a gun. He's 6'8", 260 with abs. And I feel like, I wasn't a very good husband, but I must not have been that bad of a father because my kids still talk to me. I mean, every week we communicate 3 or 4 times. So to me, that's what I want to be. I look forward to the point when I can go to, one of Cassidy's college functions and people go, that's Cassidy's dad over there. I look forward to going to wrestling events when they say, see that old guy over there? That he used to wrestle, I think, back when it was in black and white, but that's Cody Hall's dad. I mean, that's where I want to be. Look at that, bro. Like, just thinking about it.
Yeah, goosebumps.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I want to be. My legacy, I want to be like a good father.
And you talked about not being able to look at Dallas because you'll get emotional. It's hard for me to look at him after watching that movie and not getting emotional because I watched it with my fiance who's not a wrestling fan. So for me, it's easy because I'm emotionally invested in you, in Dallas, and Jake. I grew up watching you, going to see you, buying tickets, watching you on TV.
Wait a minute, you grew up watching me? You're older than me.
I am older than you, man. But AWA, big Scott Hall in the AWA. Okay?
Hey, Village People mustache.
Yeah. I love it.
You had abs back then.
I was so angry when you left the AWA, by the way. But that's a different story for a different day. But even for her, not being a wrestling fan, and I'm not older than you, by the way. I may have more gray hair, but I'm not older than you.
Dallas's wife is my hairdresser. She added a little pepper to the salt and pepper before I came up.
But it's easy to hook me, but to hook somebody who's not a wrestling fan, the human interest story, to see the rise and the fall and the rise again like you said, of a father, of just a man. I mean, to be able to tap into those emotions, it really is hard not to be emotional watching this movie.
Thank you. And that's the part that it really touched me when we went to the Slam Dance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. And, there was everywhere you go, there's some wrestling fans. So there was some fans there, but it was mostly film people. So we did the initial screening. It was the first time I'd seen the movie. And I wasn't proud of that guy out there. I was happy with the way it ended up, but not too happy with the footage there. And but unfortunately, everybody knows somebody who suffers from mental illness or addiction. Everybody knows somebody. And so there was people in the audience who were sharing like, well, I'm not really a wrestling fan. I'm going, well, I never heard of you either. But just like, my sister died from alcoholism or this and that. And the message that if Jake was here, I know what Jake would say because I heard him say it earlier today is the message is kind of like, my message is if you need help, ask for it. And I always struggle with that. And I struggled harder with when people offered me help. I would get real defensive. People go, hey, you all right? I go, better than you. I get real defensive like, nah, I thought I had everybody fooled. I thought nobody knows. I'm wasted. No, everybody knows.
Yeah.
And Jake's message is to the people who may see themselves in Dallas or Steve's role, is like, hey, don't give up on people. Like, just give them 50 chances.
Scott, that is incredibly ironic that you would say that because my next question literally was to Dallas. Was there a time or times, and God, you got frustrated in this movie. You were screaming at these guys in the movie out of love, too. And you would always follow up. Like, I remember the scene. You're kind of walking up the stairs. You're looking down at Jake. You're like, did you forget the other part of the message that I love you? And Jake's like, yeah, you love me. I got you. But was there ever a time where you're just like, I can't do it? Was there ever a give up?
Yes and no. When Brenda and I were in Costa Rica, because it was the time where I finally took some time for me because I hadn't been. I've been like just spreading myself so thin, and I was surfing down there, and the waves were unbelievable. And then I heard the shit hit the fan, and I cracked. Only Brenda saw me like really crack. And then by the time I got back, I was pretty mellow. So it was just like, okay, so let's. I honestly felt like, through that whole movie part, Scott was the straight arrow on that. Jake stumbled. But, when you take coke, booze, pills, and crack out of an everyday occasion, and you throw in 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever the hell it was times you start drinking, that's still pretty fucking good. So I am not even half full. It's like 9/10 full, glass of water as opposed to a half empty. And I will find I look at like, I was just doing a keynote speak for a big corporation in Charlotte. Like 2 days ago, yesterday, as a matter of fact, before I went to Philly. But during it was like something happened when I was talking, and I just started talking about how the worst thing ever in my life was when I blew my back out and they said my career was over. I was done. Like, you talk about emotional gravity and pulling yourself down. Because, I all the top 3 doctors in the world and spine specialists told me I was done. And out of that came DDP yoga, which is what, if there's no DDP yoga, there's no movie. There's no Arthur Borman. There's no Chris Jericho. There's no Jake Roberts. No Scott Hall. I mean, to do this journey. So out of the worst thing that happened to me, it turns out to be the best. So that's how I try to live it, but there are times where I go like, fuck this, crack, let it go down, and pick myself back up and keep moving forward.
I'd like to chime in here. Maybe you don't know Dallas very well. This cat is annoyingly positive. And I say that with the utmost affection. And
we know him well enough to know that, Scott.
Well, and work ethic wise, he is not going to be outworked. It ain't going to be because, if he fails, which rarely, I've never been around him when he has, it's not going to be because he didn't try really, really hard. So quit is not an option for him. He doesn't give up. And so I was so looking forward to, I had an appearance last week, so I wasn't with these guys in Dallas and in Tampa. But I was so looking forward to being around Dally because I feel like anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So I know I'm going to overdo some DDP yoga. I'm going to get a big-time overdose of positivity. And, like, sometimes I lay in bed. Before I used to lay in bed and toss and turn like, man, oh, my God, I hate my life. Now I lay in bed going, things are so great. I can't sleep.
You sound like him.
Come on tomorrow. Except for the bro.
Come on, bro.
I think the wonderful thing about this movie as well is how it really is a brotherhood, pro wrestling. You talk about how, Dallas, how Jake helped you, Dusty Rhodes helped you, and how Scott and Kevin Nash helped you as well, and you help each other, not only inside the ring but outside the ring, that it really is a family and a brotherhood.
Absolutely. That's even guys you have heat with, like guys you freaking wanted to kill each other at some point. And as it goes on, it's just like, it's family. It's like you see each other like, hey.
I mean, even a guy that you can't stand in the locker room or something like that, if you're in a nightclub or you're in a bar and somebody's messing with him, it's like, bro, I got your back. Like, I may not ever travel with you or have a meal with you, but we're brothers. And who fights better than brothers?
Yeah. Right. And as we find out in the resurrection of Jake the Snake, the fighting, or really the physical toll that has been taken by you guys. And we've talked to Dallas numerous times about the back and obviously how yoga reshaped his body.
What'd you call it?
Pardon?
What'd you just call it?
Did I call it DDP yoga?
No, you didn't.
What did I call it?
Brand recognition, brother.
I didn't call it Ain't Your Mama's Yoga.
No, you said the Y word, bro.
Oh.
Damn it. I'll be in my trailer. I only work for professionals.
But, you guys go through so much as professional wrestlers. And, that's one of the reasons we have an incredible respect for the life that you lead, away from your family, on the road so much, but what happens in the ring. And the scene where you're doing one of your first stretches, Scott, and you do that stretch and you hear the hip. And I thought it was somebody shaking something in the background or some ambient noise or whatever. It was your hip. Yeah. I was like, oh, my God. And literally, I think it was you or whoever had the camera, Steve, kind of zooms in and you kind of move the leg back and it cracks again. And, talk about how tough the physical side of it was. Once the head's cleared, now you're at the accountability crib. Now you're working with Dally. And you realize, you know what, I can't even move forward. I got to get my hip taken care of.
Like I said earlier, I'd kind of given up. I figured, well, this is the price you pay. I bounced around a lot. I came up in the air when there was a lot of bouncing around. Like now I tell my son, just try to register. Don't just bounce around. Just register. It looks better. Plus preserve your body. But I blame it. I credit and blame Ric Flair for it. Ric Flair was the top guy when I was starting. And he would do a spot sometimes where he'd push the referee would push him back, and he would flat back. He would attack the mat. So if the top guy in your company is performing to that way, and you're coming up, if you don't perform that way, you get no crowd reaction. And back then, a lot of the rings were like billiard tables. And so you had to attack the mat because if you went down soft, it hurt worse.
Wow.
It was so funny because we were here in this building earlier today, and there was these young little contestants from some Hooters contest or something, all these little young baby dolls all dressed up. And one girl came up to me and she said, "Are you a wrestler?" And I said, "Well, I wrestled before you were born. And she said, you look like a wrestler. And I'm like, thank you. And she said, I went down and I tried out to be a WWE diva. And then she pulled me aside from her friend. She said, does it hurt when you take a fall? And she said, because it was hurting me. And I couldn't take it. And I said, baby doll, it hurts in like the training center or like an empty building. I said, but imagine being in Madison Square Garden when it's sold out, or being somewhere for a live TV. It doesn't hurt at all. Until later in the hotel, and you're like, ow. And again, like in the era that Dally and I were around, you'd be going, oh, my back hurts. And some guy who'd been around longer would go, you hurt? Everybody, take a look around the locker room. Everybody's hurt. Here, take this. No, I can't sleep. I'm in a different bed every night. You can't sleep? Here, take this. I mean, when I started with the WWE, they had a drug testing policy because the steroid scandal was out. So they took away the roids, the weed, the cocaine. But every arena I went to at that time, there was a doctor with a script pad going, what do you need, kid? So it was booze and drugs, booze and pills, which is a lethal combination. But that was the reality that we were in.
And I don't think anybody really knew. At some point, people started to get hip to it, and you're still went to denial at that point. But I'll never forget the first time that I'm out with Jake and we're in a club, and I'd seen him like chewing on this pill again, and I said, "Did you just take a Percocet again?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Why did you chew it?" He said, "Because it goes into your system faster." I go, "What number was that?" I don't know, 9, 10. And that was light. And I thought, oh, man, I'm going to need these things to work. I'm like 36 years old and starting this journey. So and not that I didn't do it, having a pill and a cocktail, because it was a pretty good high. I didn't make it a regular practice because I wanted those pills to work. I needed them to, help get me through 35, 36, 37, hitting that mat for the first time. It was awakening.
And
Dally doesn't have his pro card as an alcoholic. He's like he's still amateur standing, and that's a good thing. I'm not happy about it, but in a lot of these rehabs I were in, they say there's a genetic component, and I come from a long line of hard drinking Kentucky rednecks. So if there's a genetic component, I got that. If it's a lifestyle choice, I got that. When I look back over my life, the only thing I really regret is I hurt some innocent people's feelings. Did I make bad decisions? Yes. Would I do it again? Probably. The only thing I really regret is some people's feelings got hurt who shouldn't have.
But at the same time, people like yourself, like Dallas, like Jake, what you also have is this drive. You guys were at the top of your craft, which is, I think, even more fascinating because with your history of addiction and then what obviously you were going through, you were masking pain so you could stay at that level. And I'm sure that masking of the pain, maybe it kept you in the ring, but then it comes back to haunt you when your hips clicking all over the place and you can barely walk.
Yeah, I never was a pain pill guy. My drug of choice is Xanax because I never can calm down.
Okay.
But for me, like the pain was, the only time I really felt in control of my life was when I hit the curtain. When I was Razor, I'm doing that NWO gig. How you doing? Better than you. Because when I'm out there, I'm in complete control. Now, when I come back through the curtain, my real life is there waiting for me. All my trauma, my childhood coming up, this and that, my multiple divorces, all this stuff, lawyers out there, alimony payments, all this kind of stuff. So, like you talk about masking pain, for me, a lot of it was emotional. I did. I had a few injuries along the way. Obviously, my hip was beat up. I've had some spine surgery and some orthopedic stuff, but I consider that just part of the job. And now it's way different. See, back in our era, if you were hurt, you just kept going because if you leave, somebody else gets your spot.
Yeah.
Now they have a whole different procedure in the WWE. If you get hurt, if you get your bell rung, they have a concussion protocol you have to pass. If you get nicked up in the ring, no, you're off. And now, because I left, now guys get guaranteed money, so they don't really have to worry about it. Back in those days, if you didn't work, you didn't make money. I mean, I remember times in my Razor run when I had blown my knee out, and the agent, who's a former wrestler, who's in charge of You know, one guy would collect the box office, the other guy would give out the finishes. And they'd go, can you just go out there? Can you just do anything? You know, we're in a big market. We're in Philly. Can you just go to the ring and the other guys will work around you? So you end up going out there, and now you're going, wow, this is Philly. This is a big market for me. I make a lot of money in this town. I'm not letting these people who paid their hard-earned money to come see me, and then you get caught up in it. You know, you get caught up in it, and you just continue to hurt yourself. But at the same time, no one ever put a gun to my head and made me do it. I'm living a childhood dream. And that's why, like, right when Dallas reached out to me, my dreams were over. And I think I'm looking back on, I had a pretty good time. I lived the kind of life most guys only dream of. So I'm thinking, well, now this is the price I pay. I can't walk. I'm in a wheelchair when I arrive in Atlanta, and when I do walk, it's real slow. But I'm cool with it because I've given up. I'm thinking, well, I got no relationships. Now I go to the mall, I get to sign autographs and stuff for strangers, but my kids don't have nothing to do with me at that point. I've poisoned all my relationships, by my behavior. And I don't blame wrestling or anybody else. I'm accountable for that. I accept all the blame for the choices I made.
I really hope that resurrection of Jake the Snake is talked about 15 years, 20 years, 25 years from now, because we've all seen and talked about Beyond the Mat and the way that betrayed Jake Roberts. And I really hope in a positive sense for you and for Jake that this is a movie that people reflect on years from now and talk about in the positive message. It's rare nowadays that everybody kind of harpens on the negativity in this day and age with TMZ. They're always trying to find the next big thing. And actually, Dallas, you said it in the movie with cell phones. People take out the cell phone when they're seeing it instead of helping you, helping you or helping Jake at a time where you figure people can reach out and help somebody. They take out the cell phone and hope to get it on the internet. So I really hope this positive message and this positive movie is talked about decades from now.
Thank you. It's very kind of you.
Yeah, and from my side too, both of those incidents, which we saw on the resurrection of Jake the Snake, both Jake trying to get in there and wrestle, and what that turned into, and you in your situation. Where's the accountability with the promoters as well? There's got to be an accountability backstage. Again,
I look at it this way. That guy hired me to come in and be on the top of my game. He didn't want me coming in there all pilled up. So I don't blame that guy. Like, Kevin Nash was going to kill the guy. Kev was he's like my big brother. He's going to kill him. And I went, Kev, man, that guy hired me, paid me good. He didn't want me showing up like that. That's all on me. That's the part I own up to. I'm not proud of it, but I'm at the point now where I don't really feel the need to be ashamed of it either. It is what it is.
I get that, but there has to be a place where you draw the line. At some point, you have to say he's not capable of doing it, and we can't put him out there.
Again, it was the biggest buy rate the guy ever got.
Probably.
Because, oh, my God, a big scandal. I've thought about it recently, and I'm wondering, had I never left, had I never gone to WCW, started the NWO, all that, if I'd have just stayed Razor my whole career, I really think that the way Vince runs his company is more of a personal relationship. Now, when I went to WCW, I had an agent and big-time lawyers. You couldn't talk to me about personal stuff. You could only talk to me about creative things. You couldn't talk to me about money.
Wow.
You could only talk to me about what was going to happen in the ring that night. You got a problem with me, call my agent. It's something legal, call my lawyer. With Vince, he doesn't operate that way. Vince would have pulled me aside and said, hey, either you check yourself or we're going to check you in somewhere. I really think that because they care about you there. Yeah, you're a product. I always looked at wrestlers like being prostitutes. I looked at when you work, when I mean in a good way. No, I mean in a good way. When you work for Vince, though, you're kind of like a streetwalker, and you're only as good as your last performance. Now, you get down to WCW, man, you got this fat guaranteed contract. You're like a high-dollar escort, but you're basically making money off your body. And I just think that Vince would have, as a pimp, would have taken me off the street and maybe put me in rehab so that he could pimp me out again in the future.
Wow. Getting into some incredible topics.
In a good way.
I mean that with all. Absolutely. I have huge respect for Vince.
Of course. And listen, you alluded to it. how many times has Vince come back to help somebody in a different organization who's down on his luck or needs that rehab?
The letter that they send out, the wellness program sends out every year to anybody who's ever been under contract with the WWE. No matter where you are on the totem pole, no matter what circumstances you left the company, they offer you rehab. If you need an intervention specialist, they provide that. You need transportation, they provide that. They pay for everything in full.
Amazing.
And they offer that to everybody. You could be Joe Blow, first match guy. You could be Hulk Hogan, biggest superstar ever. It's available to everybody. And then again, like I went 5 or 6 places on my dime. Then their wellness guy stepped in and said, "We want you to try this different approach." And that's when I started to gain some traction because this 12-step stuff just wasn't working for me.
Sure. And interestingly enough, in the movie, it was Jake, the 90 meetings in 90 days, that was maybe a tipping point for him to kind of get going. And he had that great run after that run.
And that's where, at that point, going in that's where I was the most frustrated. You know, it's just so frustrated. So I got a bunch of my buddies who, you know, are in the program. You know, but I never really looked at the program because I didn't have to look at it for myself. So I want to know, like, how did you do it? You know, and it came back to the 90 meetings in the 90 days and the whole thing and clicking that off. And I could always, okay, let's try it one more time, you know, and the comeback. You know, Steve Austin, when I first put this out there, the guys probably did a couple edits before they sent it to me. Because I'd looked at the first one and I was like, no, that's not it. Because I was looking for, because I know what the story is now. Yeah, I don't know how to edit it. I don't know how to do the directing that Steve did. As a matter of fact, if you'd have told me, if Steve had came to me and said, okay, I've got a 9-hour miniseries here, I would think, okay, do you think you got everything? You know, that he compiled everything into 93 minutes is just crazy. And, tell you the truth, man, I'm so burnt right now. I forgot where I was going. What was I talking about before that?
There was one?
Well, I mean, you talk about the footage. Was there something in the movie that you wish was included? You're taking a lot of hours of footage and you're condensing into an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, my point was that I was trying to make is that it could have been 9 hours long, and it still would have been unbelievably pulling, but that he pulled it down to 93 minutes, that you could tell the whole story and get everybody's feelings. What do you think about that, Steve? Because you put it together.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the beginning of the process, you want to get every single like really big moment in the film, but then as you watch it and you start to cut it down, you find that as you make it tighter and you tell the story faster, it makes it much smoother for the audience.
Sure.
Like, so they're not feeling, okay, what's next? It's just like it flows very well. So we're pretty happy with it.
So here's the point I was starting to make before my ADD took me somewhere else. And I'm toast because I've been on the road for 6 days, a crazy schedule. But Steve Austin, when he first saw it, it was about our 8th take, you know, on the edit bay. And he just shook his head up and down a bit and had a couple things to say. And then I just sort of left it because Steve don't put anything over for anyone. I'm one of his closest friends. He don't put anything over unless he's going to put his like seal on it. So then we got to I guess we're at about take 28 right now. And I finally sent it to him. And man, he left me a message that was just unbelievable. And then I erased it. I was so mad at myself.
What do you
He
do?
left me one too.
Yeah.
He left me
Did
one
you
too.
save it?
You're
Well, no, dude. You see, on DDP TV, he said it again on film.
Nice.
You know, and talked about getting teared up, and a tear actually rolled down his cheek, and you know, for Austin to say that, you know,
Bring a tear to a glass eye, make a fat baby poop.
Well, it was actually Steve's initial reaction to it that made us change it. Because I remember he felt like the end of the movie, it didn't have enough closure for him. So then we're like, okay, what can we do? And that's why we changed it.
Yeah.
So now it's
Interesting.
stronger.
So when you say the closure, because obviously we got Scott going into the Hall of Fame, we had Jake going into the Hall of Fame. Prior to that, we had the old school Raw, which was really a significant moment, not just for Dally, but for Jake at the end there too, which, I mean, us doing the show just completely losing it. Was it the three of them in the ring? That was really what kind of brought it together?
Yeah, it was like the thing is, the biggest thing about it was we didn't want people to say, hey, look, Hall of Fame, they're cured. Like we knew, like all of us were like, that's not the right message, because this is such a, it's such a complicated thing, addiction. So we wanted to make sure people understood this isn't something that's done. And then I think that we initially had Jake just talk about it. Like, look, I'm not done. And people felt that wasn't satisfying enough for them. So we're like, okay, how can we do it? And it just ended up, we were filming them in the ring. The same message came across, but it feels like so satisfying for people to see them all together.
Don't say what happens there, because it's a special moment. It's just and it just happened. And that's what was so beautiful about this movie. And, we had cameras everywhere. The guys who actually, from the producers, from Chris Carey to our film guys, Nathan and got Garrett
Dylan.
there, and Dylan and Nikki, they work so hard, and Tyler with graphics and all the stuff that we put together. We had cameras everywhere. And if something was happening and it started to get like, whoa, I'd say, stop, like, Chris or Nathan, get down here. Steve. And there'd be a camera right there. So we have like 500 hours of footage.
Wow.
So when we put this whole DVD together, and Scotty and I were talking about it earlier today, Steve, one of the things we want to do, and we've already got so much great footage for extra pieces and full length things instead of blips of it. But my favorite thing when I'm watching a movie that I really love, I want to hear the director's cut. I want to hear him talk about it with maybe one of the stars or one of the other writers or something, how this scene came about and where did this come from and how did this happen here and what was going through your head, because you've already seen the movie. Now to see it like that's going to be really interesting, because we're going to film ourselves doing it as opposed to talking about it too. So you might even see it back picture in picture. We're going to do it different like we always do.
Well, I was just going to say, still some more time with Dally, with Scott, with Steve, the resurrection of Jake the Snake, it really touching, and I think Steve hit the nail on the head. It's an everlasting process. It's not something that just goes away. Tomorrow when you wake up, you're still fighting.
I'm acutely aware that, my next drink's arm length away.
Yeah.
So I just try to make good choices.
Yeah, and you see in the movie, Jake's trip to Vegas, and that, I'll just say that piece, as you see him struggle with, I'm going to Vegas, what do I do? And then
having been there before, like I have, like, whoa, I mean,
I could imagine.
Yeah.
I could imagine. JakeTheSnakeMovie.com. So why is that so important? Because you simply got to go there and sign up, Dally. Correct me if I'm wrong. You go there, you sign up, and that's where you get all your information.
Yeah.
You'll know when this bad boy is coming out to VOD.
Yeah, you'll know. Hold on one second. Hey, bro, do me a favor. Throw all that out. Just throw all that out. Just give me water, okay? Hot water. Thanks. Yeah, when the VOD, that'll be the next move after the theatrical release.
Right.
We actually got released here and we had a week in New York, and we'll be in AMC Theater. That's true too. Anybody want to see me and Scott? Saturday and Sunday, we got a 7:00 show and a 9:00 show both nights, and we'll be doing Q&As after the performance, after people get to see it. But the JakeTheSnakeMovie.com, after this is over, you'll get to know when the VOD is coming out, when the DVD, and that thing's going to be chock. We're going to have a lot of stuff on the DVD. And then also later down the line, when it does showtime, you'll just be in the know of what's happening with Jake the Snake Movie.
JakeTheSnakeMovie.com. And when you say, though, the theatrical release as we're getting now, where you're seeing this in the theater, you're seeing this on the big screen, your production, your audio, Steve, your graphics that come through, brilliant. And what I would say is, if you're lucky enough, for example, apparently you can't go, don't worry about the Yonkers show because you can't get in tonight. But if you want to go Saturday and Sunday, AMC Empire 25 on 42nd Street, Dave, I highly suggest going, because when you're in the theater, it's just a different vibe, and like that, to me, it's like you could sit back and really fall into the raw emotion. You're total, shut the cell phone off. totally zoom in, focus in on what is being presented. This is not a reality show. This is not a movie. This is a documentary about people's lives. It's also a story of hope, as you heard Scott say. Yeah. It's also a story of a constant struggle, a fight. If you want to see a fight, you want to see a struggle, you want to see real people's lives, and you want to see people that obviously you loved growing up. And for me, obviously, being a WCW, an Attitude Era guy, living through that era, seeing what Scott went through, you with Jake, both of us with our friend Dallas Page, it's a must. You go, you watch it, you sit back, you listen to the Q&A with these people that lived it, and you really get an essence of what's going on. And then at the same time, JakeTheSnakeMovie.com, so you know when the video on demand's coming out, you'll get a little bit more. When the DVD, as Dallas just said, comes out, you get even more. And how many hours are sitting on the cutting room floor that you're still going through, Steve?
Yeah, there's a lot. We still, there's probably stuff that I haven't even seen that we shot. So it's going to be pretty cool to have all the extra stuff for fans to really see.
And hey, what are you guys? You guys want to come around and monitor? I think we talked about maybe be a monitor Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, if you need us, we'll be there.
If you guys want to do it, we don't have anybody for Saturday.
For Saturday and Sunday, I'm not sure. We'll have to double check. But if you guys can come out,
I'm pretty sure I'm almost positive we don't have anybody there.
We need someone who knows something about wrestling, though.
You guys know anything about wrestling?
That's pro wrestling.
But it's an emotional roller coaster ride, and you talk about going to the screening at AMC, which it's amazing place. Bring some tissues. You're gonna laugh too. The Odd Couple parody is fantastic, and it's gonna put a smile on your face too. So it really, you go through all these emotions, and it's emotional.
Before we wrap things up, we only have a few minutes, guys. I asked this to Scott because you had that moment, the WWE Hall of Fame, and Jake had that moment, the WWE Hall of Fame. When's this guy going in? Because we've been talking about it for too long. He's a Hall of Famer. It's just a matter of time, right?
I suspect Dallas goes in this year.
Wow.
What I want to say is, on record, now, man, I went in with Warrior, and I never had the opportunity to wrestle him. It just didn't work out that way. He was holding out for money, whatever. There was a pay-per-view match that was supposed to take place. It never did. It was supposed to be Flair and I against Macho and Warrior. And the first time Warrior had returned since that hold-up period where you held Vince up for money was at that Hall of Fame. And my first time being welcomed back. Jake's first time being welcomed back. So it was really a cool moment. And then for Warrior passing, it was just so crazy, so bittersweet. But then they created this Warrior Award, which is for humanitarian stuff. And Dallas would certainly qualify for that. But I think he should be recognized for his in-ring performance because just to me, the notion of the Warrior Award, it's like, well, this is because you're such a good guy. Well, yeah, he's a great guy. I'm testimony to that. But he was a great performer, and I think he should be recognized for that. And I predict it happens this year down in Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
Amazing.
You deserve it, Dallas.
Yeah, you deserve it. And you're right, Scott, to a certain extent, from a humanitarian side, what he's done to instill that positivity, that attitude, that the workout, the regime. Look at the shirt, DDP Yoga. It's
a lifestyle brand. It's a lifestyle program that Dallas is in charge of.
It's
it's
amazing,
life changing.
And for all the things he's done outside the ring, but you're right. I mean, geez, I remember him, dropping a diamond cutter on you and then racing up into the crowd. You saw it. I was like, I can't believe I'm watching, some of the things that I recall from my childhood. Those moments are etched in our head. Dallas is a Hall of Famer. You are a Hall of Famer. Jake's a Hall of Famer. We will catch up with Mr. Roberts at some time soon for sure. Jake the Snake Movie is the spot. JakeTheSnakeMovie.com, I should say. JakeTheSnakeMovie.com to get all the information, to get your, everything that comes going forward, different theatrical releases. You guys are still touring. You guys are still going around the country.
We'll be in Chicago. Get your tickets to Chicago now because they ain't going to last long. Me and Scott will be in Chicago next weekend, right? The 9th
and 10th.
And we'll go into L.A. after that. Don't miss L.A. ArcLight.
DDP, Scott Hall, Steve Yu. Thank you, guys.
On Sirius XM Radio.